It all began in 1970 when Jimmy Page and Robert Plant recorded a few notes while sitting in a cottage in the Welsh Mountains. Little did they know that the opening riff of Led Zeppelin's iconic song Stairway to Heaven was about to become the center of controversy. And before we jump into this, let me just say this in no way reflects legal advice. If you need that, you should get off YouTube and go find an actual lawyer, of which we are not. Before we land right on the point, here is a bit of context of the story. So basically, the heirs of songwriter Randy Craig Wolfe, known as Randy California, quietly filed a copyright infringement lawsuit against members of Led Zeppelin, including Jimmy Page and Robert Plant, along with other parties involved in the creation of the iconic 1971 song Stairway to Heaven. This lawsuit was filed in a Pennsylvania federal court and is indeed a gentle but long-awaited step in preserving a legacy. The lawsuit actually takes us back to the remarkable journey of Randy Wolfe in the music industry. Discovered by the legendary Jimi Hendrix at the tender age of 15, he later became the founding member of the band Spirit. In 1968, Spirit released a self-titled album, even reaching the heights of Billboard's top 40 charts. A notable track on that album was a 2-minute 37-second instrumental piece titled Taurus, featuring a distinctive guitar line. The lawsuit gently reminds us that little did anyone know at the time, this 17-year-old Randy Wolfe had crafted what would later become some of the most cherished guitar work in the history of music. And remarkably, the opening act for their tour was none other than Led Zeppelin. The lawsuit gracefully underscores the influence of this tour on Led Zeppelin's sound, notably Jimmy Page's use of the Etherwave theremin and other psychedelic audio effects. These elements played a meaningful role in shaping Led Zeppelin's distinctive sound, most prominently featured in tracks like Whole Lotta Love. The widely accepted account of the creation of Stairway to Heaven paints Jimmy Page secluded in a serene Welsh cottage in 1970 where he composed the song by a fireside. The song was gently recorded in London in 1970 and 71 and released on an untitled album, now famously known as Led Zeppelin IV. The opening guitar passage of the song has become an iconic symbol and a gentle initiation for aspiring guitar players. However, the trustee currently overseeing the Wolfe estate took a legal step challenging the perceived similarities between Taurus and Stairway to Heaven. The lawsuit that alleged that the opening chords of Stairway to Heaven were stolen from Spirit's 1967 song Taurus would soon be taken to court. The case claimed copyright infringement and was brought by Michael Skidmore, trustee for Randy Wolfe, also known as Randy California, the guitarist and composer of Taurus. The lawsuit argued that Page and Plant might have been exposed to Taurus during the late 1960s when Spirit and Led Zeppelin toured together. It further claimed that the opening riff of Stairway to Heaven was copied directly from Taurus without ever giving credit to Randy Wolfe. It was initially filed with the intent of blocking the re-release of this iconic song. However, the case took a significant turn when U.S. Judge Gary Klausner weighed in on the matter. He made a ruling that set the stage for a high-stakes legal showdown. Judge Klausner's ruling was a pivotal moment in the case. He declared that a jury could indeed find substantial similarity between the first 2 minutes of Stairway to Heaven and Spirit's Taurus. In his judgment, Klausner described these 2 minutes as arguably the most recognizable and important segments of the songs in question. It was a declaration that sent shockwaves through the music industry. Klausner's statement went further in explaining his reasoning. He acknowledged that a descending chromatic 4-chord progression was indeed a common musical convention found throughout the industry. However, he contended that the similarities between the two songs transcended this basic structure. Klausner highlighted that what remained was a subjective assessment of the concept and feel of the two works. This was a task he believed was not suited for a judge to decide alone, and that it deserved the collective judgment of a jury. The dispute between the two bands is rooted in contrasting memories and interpretations of events from their shared history. Mark Andes, the former Spirit bassist, emphasized that Spirit's Taurus would typically follow a big and forceful number during their performances, always eliciting a positive response from the audience. Andes believed that Led Zeppelin's members would have witnessed Taurus in this context, and to him the similarities between the two songs were glaringly obvious. He hoped that Led Zeppelin would acknowledge the influence and give Randy Wolfe, also known as Randy California, a nod of the recognition for his contribution to their music. However, in the lawsuit filed, the surviving members of Led Zeppelin took a different stance. They vehemently denied ever sharing a stage with Spirit's members or engaging in discussions with them when both bands were on the festival circuit in the 1960s. This discrepancy in recollections added a layer of complexity to the legal battle, with each side presenting contrasting narratives of their interactions during that time. Interestingly, it's worth noting that Randy Wolf had reportedly considered a copyright lawsuit as far back as the 1980s. However, due to financial constraints, he was unable to pursue the matter. In a 1991 interview, Wolf expressed a more conciliatory attitude, stating that he was open to letting Led Zeppelin use the beginning of Taurus for their song without resorting to a lawsuit. This statement hinted at a willingness to find an amicable solution to the dispute. Despite the judge's ruling that a trustee could only claim 50% of any damages awarded, the ongoing royalties generated by Stairway to Heaven meant that a substantial amount was at stake in the lawsuit. In fact, by 2008, Condé Nast Portfolio magazine estimated that the song had earned at least $525 million in royalties and record sales. Moreover, Stairway to Heaven was featured on Led Zeppelin 4, which ranks as America's third biggest selling album of all time. The financial implications were significant, adding further tension and intrigue to the legal battle that threatened to reshape the history of rock music. John Ireland, the music lawyer who represented Mercury Prize-winning band Young Fathers, weighed in on the legal battle, shedding light on the intricacies of the case. He noted that the case had gained momentum due to the obvious similarity between the two pieces of music, making it unsurprising that the judge allowed it to proceed before a jury. This acknowledgement of similarity served as a crucial factor that heightened the gravity of the dispute. Ireland pointed out a significant challenge that the representatives of Randy Wolf, the late guitarist of Spirit, would face in the courtroom. He highlighted that the first hurdle they would need to overcome is proving that what Wolf wrote in Taurus constituted a copyrightable item in its own right. This was a pivotal question, as it addressed the fundamental issue of whether Taurus held copyright protection as an individual work. Moreover, Ireland introduced a compelling argument that put forth by Led Zeppelin's side. They contended that there was no copyright in the original song, and that the chord progression used was so commonplace in the world of music that no one could assert exclusive copyright ownership over it. In essence, their line of defense seemed to be that the very foundation of the case was flawed, suggesting you can't sue us because you don't own the rights to the original song itself. Ireland emphasized that the question of access was likely to carry significant weight when it came to swaying a jury, and the fact that Led Zeppelin had toured with Spirit before composing a song that bore substantial similarity to Taurus was a pivotal consideration. Whether or not the resemblance was intentionally copied, the mere exposure to the chord progression from Taurus during their shared experiences on tour could potentially have influenced Jimmy Page and Robert Plant's creative process. This in itself might be sufficient to hold them accountable for any copyright infringement claims brought by Randy Wolf. Andy Milmore, a copyright lawyer representing Harbottle and Lewis, underlined the broader implications of this case for the music industry. What set this case apart from recent copyright disputes was the extended period that had elapsed since the song in question was written. Nearly 50 years had passed since the creation of Stairway to Heaven. This unique characteristic of the case raised concerns that reached beyond Led Zeppelin and Randy Wolf, potentially having a significant impact on record labels and established artists with extensive musical legacies. The potential outcome of this case would have far-reaching implications for the music industry. As John Ireland pointed out, a successful claimant in this case might pave the way for individuals to come forward, including composers and smaller artists who might have harbored long-standing grievances over their works being borrowed or mimicked. Over the decades, such individuals may have quietly nursed a sense of injustice, and this case might embolden them to step out of the shadows and seek legal recourse in the courts. It's worth noting that Led Zeppelin has faced copyright challenges in the past. Some of these legal battles have resulted in writing credits being added to several of their iconic songs, including Whole Lotta Love, Babe I'm Gonna Leave You, The Lemon Song, and Dazed and Confused. These cases serve as reminders of the ongoing tension between artistic inspiration and copyright infringement in the music industry. Interestingly, Jimmy Page himself acknowledged one source of influence on Stairway to Heaven. He once described the process of writing the famous opening riff as a poor man's bourrée by Bach, which sheds light on the complexities of tracing the origins of musical ideas and the intricate web of musical history that often informs creative process. During the legal proceedings, Jimmy Page, the renowned guitarist and member of Led Zeppelin, testified that he had never heard Spirit's tune before, emphasizing, "It was totally alien to me." He went on to express his confusion when he first encountered the comparison between the two songs, stating, "When it started, I was confused by the comparison. What's this got to do with Stairway?" However, the jury's decision did not align with Page's assertion that the members of Led Zeppelin were unaware of the Spirit song. Instead, they concurred with the evidence presented by musicologists, who argued that the descending chord sequence in question had been a recurring musical motif used for centuries in various compositions. This led to Spirit's lawyers immediately appealing the verdict, claiming that the jury had not been allowed to hear the full version of Taurus. Their argument was that Jimmy Page had indeed relied on Taurus to create the introduction to Stairway to Heaven, which they saw as nearly identical. However, despite these legal twists and turns, the case ultimately culminated in March 2020 when the U.S. Supreme Court denied the appeal, allowing the 2016 judgment to stand. For Jimmy Page and Robert Plant, this marked the end of the copyright case, confirming their positions. In response, Spirit's lawyer, Francis Malafi, remained defiant and vocal, stating, "What you have here is a big win for the multi-billion-dollar industry against the creatives. I love Led Zeppelin, as a man, but they're the greatest art thieves of all time, and they got away with it again today." The case not only reflected the complexities of copyright law, but also stirred passionate opinions about artistic influence and the music industry's dynamics.